In the age of social media censorship, questioning whether or not the Earth is a globe has been deemed harmful thought. But why is this? We seem to be conditioned to think that the issue has been scientifically settled. But this is not the case. Our most popular scientists recognize that the geocentric model, where the Earth is at the center of the universe, is observably accurate. Edwin Hubble and Stephen Hawking went as far as to say that they reject the geocentric model not based on scientific reasoning, but rather because they find the thought of being at the center of the universe to be emotionally disturbing. Physicist George Ellis stated that you cannot disprove the geocentric model, you can only exclude it on philosophical grounds. The Michelson-Morley experiment in the 1880s proved the Earth was stationary, and Albert Einstein claimed this was a serious embarrassment and intended to disprove it with his relativity theory, but later admitted that he had failed to do so. We are conditioned to think that the heliocentric model is scientifically superior to the geocentric model, but when we apply scientific reasoning, we discover that this is not true. Contrary to popular thought, the scientific community has disputed the heliocentric model for centuries, such as the Earth's curvature. According to the heliocentric Earth model, the Earth is 24,000 miles in circumference, and if one were standing at sea level, they should only be able to see less than 3 miles before the surface of the Earth curves out of view. But this has been proven to be false for centuries, from the Bedford Level experiments of 1838 to modern photography. This photograph of Chicago was taken almost 60 miles away from Grand Mere State Park in Michigan. On a spherical Earth, this would be impossible. Using the Pythagorean theorem and the current dimensions of the Earth, the top of the tallest skyscraper should be 900 feet below the observable horizon. Local news explained this anomaly by claiming the image was a mirage.
And what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage.
They claimed that somehow light refraction and perfect weather conditions are responsible for creating a photorealistic mirage of the Chicago skyline, appearing to sit on the flat horizon from almost 60 miles away. Anomalies in the Earth's curvature can also be found in old lighthouses, able to be seen for several miles past what is possible on the heliocentric model, and weapons guidance systems that are capable of sighting targets that would only be possible on a flat plane. We are accustomed to observing ships disappearing over the curve, but with modern consumer cameras, we can observe that this seems to be an optical illusion based on light reflection and the laws of perspective. Many of us tend to think the planet is too big to observe curvature, but the empirical evidence tells us that either the surface of the Earth is a flat plane or the planet is at least 100 times bigger than we are told. Another very intriguing argument for flat earthers is Antarctica, the mysterious massive continent at our southern pole that nobody is allowed to explore. After sailing over 60,000 miles along the Antarctic coastline, Captain Cook was never able to complete the journey around the ice continent, which is supposed to be just under 12,000 miles around. Neither was James Clark Ross or the British ship Challenger. Nobody has ever successfully circumnavigated Antarctica. Many so-called flat earthers claim that these attempts failed because Antarctica is actually a massive ice barrier that surrounds the flat surface of the Earth. The azimuthal equidistant projection map, produced by the U.S. Geological Survey, has been used for centuries for the fact that all directions or azimuths are correct and all distances are at true scale. Studying this map, one can clearly see how man has been able to accurately circumnavigate the Earth on a flat plane model. And if it is in fact accurate, then it explains why after 60,000 miles, nobody has been able to completely circumnavigate Antarctica. Interestingly, this is also the map used by the United Nations. Admiral Richard Byrd, Medal of Honor winner, youngest admiral in the history of the Navy, and recipient of 3 ticker tape parades in his honor, led 4 expeditions to Antarctica. The 4th being a military operation known as Operation High Jump, with an aircraft carrier group, 4,700 men, 13 support ships, and 33 aircraft. Their stated mission was to establish the Antarctic research base Little America 4, but many believe the true nature of the secret mission was to root out the Nazis who arrived in 1939, claiming New Swabia and setting up a Nazi presence in Antarctica. In 1954, Admiral Richard Byrd spoke on TV of an area bigger than the United States with valuable resources and announced a future of international exploration.
Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
Strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. We've found enough coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Well, Admiral, do you hope to see that?
I do. So I'm willing to say to you that there will be a number of expeditions that will follow, I think, year after year, at the bottom of the world, because the government has really become interested.
But this never happened. In 1957, Admiral Byrd died in his sleep of a heart ailment at the age of 68. And on December 1st, 1959, all 12 countries active in Antarctica signed a United Nations treaty that outlawed all public travel south of the 60th southern parallel. This was the same time that NASA was formed. The world's attention was pulled away from exploring Antarctica and directed firmly on the moon. In 1962, a series of high-altitude nuclear tests was carried out by the United States. It was called Operation Fishbowl, which has caught the curiosity of many flat Earth researchers because the flat Earth model shared by the ancients was one where we lived within a sphere, upon a flat surface, and surrounded by a massive dome, like a fishbowl, or the Truman Show. To this day, the public is strictly prohibited from traveling below the 60th southern parallel. Nobody has ever completely circumnavigated Antarctica, and airplanes are prohibited from flying over the icy continent. What are they hiding? There is now talk of investing trillions of dollars to explore Mars. Why not Antarctica? If sharing videos about flat Earth is harmful, why not put it all to rest by circumnavigating Antarctica, documenting everything, and prove that the Earth is a spinning globe?
Good evening, everyone. I have a special video for you guys today, and this video is going to show you how they hide the ice wall from the tourists who actually take a tour to supposedly Antarctica. And there's only 2 tour routes from 2 different countries, and you're going to be amazed. Once I went to the original flat Earth map from 1892, it was easy to figure out how they do it. I'm going to show you guys. Enjoy the video. Okay, here we have the flight and cruise route for a tour to Antarctica from Planet Janet Travels. Let me zoom in on that a little better where you guys can see it. There we go. Okay, now let's switch over to this map of the route so you can see the names. It leaves out of Cape Horn Goes past the South Shetland Islands along the Antarctic tail and then back up. Now this right here would be the South Shetland Islands on Google Maps. And then of course there's the little tail of Antarctica. There's a panned out view for you guys to see it a little better. But pay attention to the tail of that Antarctica. It's going to be really important in a minute. Here's another view of the route. See how it goes along the edge of that tail and then they turn around and they go back? Okay, now here's where things get interesting. Let's look at the 1892 flat Earth map. Now, this right here is South America. So let's zoom in here where you guys can see this. Now here's the route. There's Cape Horn, where they leave from. And as you can see right down below that, you have the South Shetland Islands. Okay, and then you have the ice wall, of course. But notice this little tail right here. Well, that's the same tail that you see on the continent Antarctica that they show you on the globe, which is pretty slick. But anyways, this little part right here, this is the little area that they travel along and call it the Antarctica, which is only a tiny little bit. So the route goes this way. It goes through the Shetland Islands, comes down through here, past these little islands, then turns around and goes back to Cape Horn. And if you'll notice on this map how the ice wall looks, well, down here where they supposedly tour at, this is the only part of the little ice wall that sticks out in that area. So you'd be stationed there working or take a tour and you would never really see the ice wall. You only see that little piece of it that sticks out because of the rest of Antarctica is off limits. Now let's have a look at the only other tour that you can take to Antarctica, which goes from South New Zealand and back to Tasmania. Now notice, I want you to pay attention to that little Stewart Island there as you leave New Zealand. Notice they go down here to what they call Commonwealth Bay, and then they cruise along a little bit, turn around and go back to Tasmania. Okay, now let's have a look at that route on the flat Earth map. Here we have South New Zealand, and notice right there on the other side of it, you see that little Stewart Island that I was telling you guys to look at on the Google map. Okay, so the route leaves here, goes down here, which on this flat Earth map it says Disappointment Bay. Remember on the Google Earth map it says Commonwealth Bay, and then they go back, return to Tasmania. So anyways, like I said, they leave here, go along this little bitty tiny bulge that sticks out from the ice wall called Commonwealth Bay, Disappointment Bay, whatever. Notice it's the only part in the ice wall except for the other part that I showed you that bulges out away from the ice wall. So anyways, they go down through here, cruise along a little bit, and then return back to Tasmania. That way you never see the ice wall. You only see that little bulge of it that's sticking out there out of this whole map. Most of this wall is cut out perfectly all the way around except for those two little spots. And they both bulge out, and then they're at the exact same spot at the bottom of both of those countries, just like it shows you on Google Maps. Now, as you can see, it's really, really simple how they pull it off, making you believe that Antarctica is a continent when it's not. That's why it's called the Antarctic Circle, because it's an ice wall, a circled ice wall all the way around the whole world. And I've had a lot of people say, well, I've had friends that worked there and they didn't see any ice wall, or were stationed there actually, and I'm sure they were stationed there, but they were only stationed in those two little bitty areas that I just showed you. And that's also the only two little areas that you could take a tour to. And the rest of, and I say this in quote when I say Antarctica, is restricted, off limits to the public, to anybody. And that's due to the 1958 Antarctic Treaty. That's because they have something to hide. They know if you went anywhere other than those two spots, you would realize that you're on an ice wall. And even a lot of flat earthers, a lot of my friends of mine always wondered, well, how do they pull it off? How do people not know? And that's exactly how, the way that I just showed you. And just takes a little bit of research, especially if you have the flat earth map. Anyways, hope that helped you guys out. Thanks for watching, and God bless.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Flat Water, Flat Earth. Today I'm presenting some evidence that a gentleman has provided to me, talking about his experience of visiting Antarctica. This is not the first time I've received a message like this. I've received a few of them. The last reading that I did of it had a terrible sound quality, so I'm going to reread it and see how it sounds. This gentleman is asking for assistance from material scientists in order to validate the sample that he has kept from his travels. I have seen the ice wall, from email redacted to Flat Water, Flat Earth. Hello, my name is David, and I am a witness to the ice wall. Since the unaltered facts described below could be used to ascertain my identity, I have changed certain details to protect against that danger. My background is a bit unusual. I graduated summa cum laude with degrees in economics and population studies, and later earned a Juris Doctorate from an Ivy League school. So what does one do with that kind of educational hodgepodge? I worked for a Fortune 500 company where I worked on, and later supervised, a team responsible for finding economically viable means to move product to and through some of the world's most remote and inhospitable locations. Some of the drops, as we called them, required creative solutions. Barriers to entry included everything like unreliable transportation channels and personnel, local warlords and pirates, local corruption and legal issues, adverse weather conditions, hazardous terrain, and basically every obstacle that you can imagine. In 2005, still relatively young, and almost 30, and having a taste for adventure, I applied for work at what was advertised to be a minimum 3-year assignment at an Antarctic research post. The job for which I applied was a human resources type job, and they were keen for someone with experience in the shipping industry. It wasn't a terrific fit for my experience and skill set, but it was close enough that I gave it a shot. I didn't hear anything back for 6 months after applying, and almost forgot about the application when I was contacted by someone who identified themselves as being from the U.S. Department of Defense, and asked if I would be interested in consideration for something else. They told me that the work would still be in Antarctica, and that it would be a better match for my skill set. I was interested, so I sent them a packet of information they requested that was the size of a small phone book and submitted to a single-scope background investigation. I was eventually cleared, contracted, and told that I would be support for a team that is searching for microbes in hard-to-reach places. In 2006, I arrived in Springfield, Virginia for a pre-departure briefing. Entry required going through 4 checkpoints and a half-dozen pat-downs. There was a heavy military presence even inside the building, and I was escorted at all times. I can still remember the smell of the corridor as I walked down it at 07:30 to the briefing room. I entered the room where one other fellow was already seated at a large round table, a man named Mike. Mike was approximately my age. He had a MS in mechanical engineering, and his expertise was in bodysuit temperature regulation. If you needed to send someone into a sub-zero environment without them turning into an icicle, Mike was your guy. Other people started to come in and the seats eventually filled, 15 in all. 14 of us were male, and all of us approximately the same age. 10 of us were military or ex-military. Everyone's background was consistent with what you would expect from a team assembled for the purpose of performing a scientific exploration of Antarctica. I would later get to know all of these people well and consider many of them to be fine individuals. At 0800, everyone had helped themselves to the instant coffee left for us. A middle-aged gentleman, Tom, walked in and introduced himself as our project leader. Tom started by saying he had read each of our files and was so grateful for us taking this assignment. Yada yada. He then started a slideshow presentation. Slide 1 read Project Copernicus, the name of our assignment. The slideshow illustrated some of the early days of the project. We were one of 6 teams working under a task force, ultimately under the authority of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. He then asked the questions, why does an Antarctic research mission require its personnel to have top secret clearance? Anyone? In what was probably the first indicator that I was the troublemaker of the group, I answered, it doesn't. Tom darted his eyes at me with a bit of surprise in his expression, as though it was crossing his mind that I already knew what was coming next. But he continued, Why would the teams working on such an assignment be compartmentalized? Why would its members be chosen individually instead of corporately? What does Antarctic exploration have to do with the security of the United States? Nobody answered. These questions had all crossed our minds, and we expected to eventually get answers, but we didn't expect to get asked those very questions from the man under whom we would be working. The answer, he said with some pause for drama, is that we're not here to explore the Antarctica that you studied in grade school. More pause for drama. I'm sure he was enjoying it. We're here to explore the real Antarctica. Tom flipped to the next slide, a map of a flat Earth, and the words, "The Earth is flat." I laughed. In my mind. Others laughed as well, but I can't say whether I merely projected my amusement on them, or whether they were actually laughing as well. Tom clearly anticipated our reaction. Without a word, he flipped to the next slide. A photo of a battleship alongside an ice wall that dwarfed it by comparison. Next slide, a photo taken from approximately a mile in air, ocean at bottom against the ice wall, followed by an incredible empty vastness that eventually disappeared into darkness. Next came a video. It was a heavily bundled Tom, though a bit younger, walking atop the ice wall where it met the ocean, and narrating his observations. It appeared to be his first visit, later confirmed to be so, and he was expressing the surrealness of his experience. More videos, more pictures, more graphs, data, and explanations. The slideshow ended, and Tom told us that we would be supporting exploration beyond the ice wall. Well, to say that there was a lot of discussion at that point is an understatement. We didn't know if this was a joke or a test, if Tom was just a lunatic, or if we and everyone around us had truly been fooled all of our lives. I had been programmed, and this data did not work within the confines of that program. I had to see it for myself. 2 weeks later, I did. The team traveled by ship. The journey was incredibly long. The days kept getting colder. Eventually, we reached the wall. The first thing that struck me was that it was so irregular in height and shape. The illustrations and videos that Tom showed us seemed to illustrate a uniformity about it, but seeing it in person revealed that this wasn't the case. Some sections of the wall were sloped, while others were not. I would describe some areas to be 2 to 3 times the height of the Washington Monument, while others appeared to be much taller than that. On this particular visit, I did not leave the ship and therefore did not see things from atop the wall, but I can confirm that the wall is gigantic and appears almost infinite. This just scratches the surface of my experience and observations. While 99% of my work was performed from behind a desk, I saw things and learned things that would blow your socks off. The first question is whether the Earth is flat. It is. The second question is whether the world as we know it is surrounded by an ice wall. It is. The third question is what is beyond the ice wall. We have a tiny sliver of the answer to that question, and the little bit that we know is astounding. I've kept this to myself long enough. I'm tired of the lies. Mostly, I'm tired of seeing the wrong people prosper because of those lies. I need help. I want to get this story out, and I need to do so safely. I'm not keen on being locked away for violating my security clearance. I expect to be vulnerable to harassment or harm by private individuals, foreign governments, and probably my own government as well. I'm writing this from a laptop that I purchased with cash 2 years ago and haven't used until earlier this week. I am in a parking lot outside a motel using their free Wi-Fi. I've gone over this message in my mind for years. I thought about posting to YouTube or sending out to media outlets, but I can't get myself into a situation where I've given up my freedom so that a total of 100 people can hear my story and disregard it. I am not a paranoid person, and I do not live my life in fear, but I don't believe in taking unnecessary risks. I knew that I might someday need or want sound evidence to back up my story. Photos can be fake, documents can be forged, witnesses can perjure. I'm not about to let myself be dismissed as a lunatic or a liar. So let me ask you, what would you do? I did something, and it doesn't involve photos. I have verifiable proof of my journey and where it led, but a premature disclosure or a release could undermine my ability to authenticate it. I hope to soon be in a position where I can disclose it. I don't enjoy being cryptic. As the operator of a YouTube channel, I am hoping that you could offer some suggestions for getting this story out. My goal is to use the audience to get attention, but also to find reputable and sympathetic chemists and material scientists with the knowledge and access to technology needed to perform a qualitative analysis of something acquired from beyond the ice wall. Please let me know if you can help. Thank you. David. End of message. So as I said earlier, other people have sent me messages similar to this before. When they did that, I didn't take the opportunity to record what they had sent me and keep it for posterity. So this time when this message came in, I thought that I had better keep a copy of it and share it with you guys. There is what David has sent me. I hope this was interesting to you and informative, if nothing else.
Okay, you guys remember how I showed you the maps that were here on Earth before 1958, before the governments took them out? And I'm going to show you the Encyclopedia Britannicas in the public libraries before 1958. Here's volume 2 out of the alphabet A. And we're going to flip to the Antarctica, and this is from 1958, as you can see. Now, we're going to flip to the Antarctica and see what the Encyclopedia Britannica from 1958, before the Antarctic Treaty, says is there. Now, you won't find this in the new encyclopedias because the government's banned them. But what I want you to notice right here is, notice how it says the flights proved inland areas to be featureless in character, with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Take a really, really close look at that. Now I'm going to zoom it in for you. When they returned to New Zealand, these flights proved the inland areas to be featureless in character, with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Now, if this doesn't make sense to you, let me show you with an image of what a flat earth map would look like. Now, this is what a latitude 80 degrees south would look like on a flat earth map. As you can see, the dome comes down closer to you over the wall, which will be about 13,000 feet. Now, if you go back out into the center of the earth, or up the North Pole, and try to go up to the firmament with a little bit of calculation, it's going to show that it's about 385,500 feet away. It's really, really simple, folks. Now, if you're not familiar with any of this at all, and you're just now new to all this, you could say, well, this guy is crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But what you got to ask yourself is, why do all the maps before 1958 show a flat earth with the ice wall around it and a firmament, a dome? And why does the encyclopedia tell you that there's a dome there, and it gives you the exact height at a certain latitude and longitude? Well, the reason is because in 1958, that's when all governments and all nations of the world signed the UN treaty to ban all civilians from going to the Antarctica, and NASA came in and erased everything, just like they're erasing everything today. So again, ask yourself, if all this existed before 1958, why doesn't it exist now? How come it all of a sudden was erased and just disappeared out of your history books, out of your encyclopedias, out of your libraries? Wake up, people. Wake up.
The stars, our only hope. Human action resounds in the heavens. The bell echoes above. What we decide here today will polish or crack the firmament. What shall it be? Human action resounds in the heavens. The bell echoes above. What we decide here today will polish or crack the firmament. What shall it be?